This is part 13 of my series on my N-gauge model railway project. Earlier parts provided an intro to the project, to my background with the railways, and covered initial setup of the baseboard, selection and laying of track, various scenic items from Metcalf, Kestrel, Ratio and P&D Marsh kits, and built from scratch with foam, etc., a review of my period LMS and LNER rolling stock, installing and weathering a Cato motorized turntable, adding more sidings to the layout, and some adjustments to the track involving customization of Cato Unitrack sections. The last couple of parts showed some actual video of running on the layout in its interim state. This part goes back a bit to cover some miscellaneous scenic updates that have been done since the last look at scenic work in this series. I had bought a couple of packs of plastic telegraph poles from British Model Trains in Cambridge, Ontario. I wanted to put poles along the lines, as they seem to be pretty ubiquitous in the UK. Here I've just been painting the insulators on the poles to try and make them look a bit more realistic. I certainly have no intention of trying to put wires on them. I still haven't actually put these along the line. Research indicates to me that they probably should be something in the order of 8 inches apart in N scale, although the separation varied between rural and urban areas, but about 8 inches seems reasonable. Other things I picked up that needed painting were post boxes, station lamps and some animals. I was initially disappointed when I got the plastic post boxes, as I thought they looked very unrealistic in bright red plastic. However, as you can see, after a bit of weathering and painting, they don't look too bad. I also wasn't too sure how well the P&D Marsh white metal station lamps shown at top right were going to work. Another thing I bought, which I wasn't too sure about, was a bunch of white metal benches from P&D Marsh. Here they are, stuck down on some masking tape, getting a coat of LMS crimson paint on their backs and seats. And here is scrapped off station after the addition of the Marsh lights and benches. I must say that they actually look better in place than I thought they would. Here's a sharper picture of the updated station using flash, and you can see the lights and the benches. Perhaps there should be more benches. Got more, anyway. That's the way it is at the moment. Here are some cows and sheep getting a bit of paint. The sheep and lambs were a Pico set. The quality of that was rather poor, with lots of flash between the legs and on the heads, and so a good deal of work with a sharp knife and magnifying glasses was necessary to get the sheep looking somewhat less mutant. Once I did that, really all I did in terms of painting the sheep was mainly to paint the heads of the sheep black. Here are 3 Langley telephone boxes. They look quite well cast, but painting them didn't look to be at all easy. This is the illustration on the package. I believed that it might be possible to get them looking like this, but I wasn't too sure how, especially getting the window frames done so neatly. I used my finest brush to paint the boxes with bright red acrylic paint, but I didn't feel up to trying to paint the window frames even with my magnifying glasses and my finest brush, so I just went over the frames with a fine red marker. Here are the boxes after a little more touching up of the paint. I think they'll work quite well on the layout. I had finally received in the post an order of Metcalf kits, which was actually bought right at the start of this project and took something like 6 weeks to come from the UK. I had ordered the Settle and Carlisle small station building, and here that is under construction. The quality of this kit is excellent, good appearance, and very well designed to make neat and proper construction possible without ridiculous difficulty. Here the main part of the building is coming together over its inner card framer with the roof in front ready to go on, and more windows glazed and sitting in the tray at the left. Now the roof is in place. The way that Metcalf recessed the windows and doors really helps to give their buildings more of a solid feel. The needle is not for sewing, it's to clean out the nozzle to keep the glue flowing, as the fine nozzle gets constantly clogged. There's red thread on the needle just so I can find it easily on the bench when I need it quickly. Now the side building has been attached to the main building, and the barge boards, the decorative bits at the end of the gables, are in place. And now the building is finished with the addition of chimneys and roof ridge pieces. The chimney pots have to be made by rolling little strips of coloured paper and gluing, which I found perhaps the most difficult part of the whole kit assembly. But I suppose what else are they going to do, given that the whole basis of these kits is flat card and paper packaging? Whilst I had the Metcalf Settle and Carlisle kit on the bench, I used some leftover thick card from it to make a couple more platform signs for my Colville station. The actual name parts were printed from my PC. I did manage to get the signs to come out more or less the correct colour, despite my trouble getting my old printer to print red properly. Here are the additional signs added to the Colville station. I stuck extra thin pieces of card across the bottom of each sign to make it possible to glue them firmly to the platform. I wasn't actually quite sure what to do with the Settle and Carlisle station building, given that I already had buildings of some sort on all of the 3 stations on the layout, since I had sourced other buildings locally during the 6 weeks this order took to come. I decided that what made most sense was to move the platform shelter building from the country station kit, currently sitting on Bilston Holt, over to the second platform of Colville, where the main country station building was already located, and then use the Settle and Carlisle building for Bilston Holt. I know this rather substantial stone building is really too grand for a Holt, but we'll just suppose the Holt grew. Apart from that objection, another problem was that the building simply wouldn't fit on the platform I had built for Bilston using the Metcalf stone platform kit, so in order to use the Settle and Carlisle building at Bilston I needed to extend the platform. I fished out the rest of the stone platform kit and made an extension piece, as you see here. Here's the top of the extension piece and the back of the platform where it's intended to attach. And here's the extension in place. And this is how things are now going to go together. And here's the station back on the layout. The back is now a bit weird, but I think I can live with it. And here's the view from the line side. And here's Colville Station, now that the platform shelter building at left has been moved back there. Here's a view of Colville Station from above as it was at this point. The next kit I turned my attention to was the Metcalf covered Footbridge kit, which came in the same order as the Settle and Carlisle building. I'm afraid I have to say that this kit wasn't quite up to the same standards. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't really up to Metcalf's own best kits. Most of Metcalf kits, in fact. As you can see, the labels on the glazing were misprinted. Both right and left sides are labelled R/H. That's even noted in the text on the instruction sheet, so apparently they noticed after the glazing had been printed, but before the instructions were printed. Actually, pretty much every Metcalf kit I've worked on has had some minor misprint or error somewhere in the instructions or the labelling. I guess they could do with a better proofreader. A more irritating problem with this kit was that the cuts that were supposed to allow parts to just pop out were not done properly, so a lot of extra work with a knife was necessary to get parts ready without damaging them. This is unusual with Metcalf kits, which usually, once you have cut along the designated attachment lines, they come away very neatly, but in this case all those little window holes wouldn't come out without tearing, and needed to be individually cut around. And there's still a little bit of raggedness on the edges here and there. Still, the kit was well thought out, as is usual for Metcalf, making it possible, for example, to assemble the stairs nice and neatly. As with the Settle and Carlisle building, I wasn't exactly sure what to do with this bridge, as the order had taken so long to come, and I had already made a bridge from the ratio kit to go from Platform 1 to Platform 2 at Colville. Since I'd also received an additional Kestrel plastic small station kit, I thought of using the additional Kestrel platform as a third platform at Colville. Shown here is just a rough trial with nothing actually glued together, just to see if the idea might work. I decided to go ahead with this plan, even if it did look a bit odd in various ways, having two different styles of footbridge on the same station and different sizes of platform. One thing I needed to do to go ahead with this was to move the platform news kiosk, also built from a Metcalf kit, as it made no sense in its current location if the footbridge was going to be at the end of the platform. I'd just recently glued down the kiosk and its signs, so I had to gently pry them off with a sharp knife. Whilst I had it off, I changed the name sign on the kiosk. I'd originally named it John Menzies and Company Limited, as that seemed reasonable to me from what I knew at the time, but subsequent reading in railway history has told me otherwise. W.H.Smith, in fact, had the concession for platform sales on all of the LNWR and subsequently LMS lines in England for over 100 years, from the 1840s right up to the British Railway days. John Menzies only had the concession for stations in Scotland. So, since Colville is intended to be in the English Midlands and not in Scotland, my kiosk should clearly be operated by W.H.Smith. The Metcalf kiosk provided signs for both options, so it was easy enough to make the change. Here is the kiosk, renamed and glued down in its new position on the Colville platform. And here is the station reassembled in its new form. And here's another view from across the layout. So that's pretty much brings things up to date as far as Scenic work is concerned. Still lots more needing to be done, and I'm sure I'm never going to go as far as the detail I've seen on many other layouts. I'm afraid I'm always going to have some ad hoc and unfinished looking bits. But I do intend to add a bunch more detail, figures, trees, vehicles, signals, etc. Still, that's it for now.